Hi. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will get going in just a second, just waiting for a couple more people to log on. We're going to start really quickly with a land declaration after that. And then we will be going to sharing some of the things that we've heard so far. Because this is our first kind of neighborhood listening session, we're also just going to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about this campaign and what we're going to do and what we're trying to do with all of our neighborhood listening sessions. And they will all be every Friday at lunchtime for the foreseeable next little while. So thank you all for joining us. I think we will start with playing the land declaration.
Kitchener Center is located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral Indigenous peoples. It's also on the Haldimand Tract, land that was promised to the Six Nations of the Grand River. Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe called this dish with one spoon territory. Everyone made sure that the dish would never be empty by taking care of the land and all of the living beings on it. This advanced diplomacy continued until settlers colonized their lands, over 99.7% of Indigenous territory over 400 years. Settlers even took Indigenous territory that was given back from the colonial state to them. After the Haudenosaunee Six Nations of the Grand River fought for the British in the American Revolutionary War, Sir Frederick Haldimand granted them 10 kilometers of land on either side of the Grand River, now referred to as the Haldimand Tract. Of the entire Haldimand land tract promised to the Six Nations, quote, which them and their posterity are to enjoy forever, they currently control less than 5%. The dispossession of land is never peaceful. The way these lands were taken was genocide, stealing children from their homes and communities, erasing languages and cultures. Government neglect and criminalization, medical racism and abuse, cultural racism and appropriation, and so much more. This is how colonization works across the world, and Canada is a colonial country. Land declarations need action. As settlers, we pledge to follow the lead of Indigenous peoples in our path to reconciliation, to challenge other settlers to unlearn colonial and racist ways of thought, to support the return of land back into Indigenous stewardship across this country, and to hold Canada to account for its genocide against Indigenous peoples. We stand in solidarity with Indigenous peoples in Canada and across the world in their struggles for justice, freedom, and self-determination.
So thank you. That is our land declaration that we made before our launch. The reason why we decided to invest time and effort into a land declaration is because of how important we think the role of the federal government is in reconciliation, in truth and justice for Indigenous populations. And because we wanted to make sure that every single time it was done right. So you will see those at future events, but might be your first introduction to our land declaration. So you will notice that I am not in my usual location, which is my apartment living room. We wanted to try something different today. So this is me and Krista Tranowski. Hello, wearing a mask. She's my communications director here on this campaign. And we wanted to be, I think, more out in the community and out more in the neighborhoods that we've been listening to, and I think try and relate a lot of the things that we're seeing to a lot of the things that we've been hearing. We also have a Jamboard option, so there will be visualizations of the conversations and the things that we hear, and those will be reported on and kind of shared. And we'll be able to build on those and really kind of build on the things that we've learned from session to session. So it's a really exciting opportunity, I think, to just start a campaign by listening. It's the only way, to start something like this. I wanted to really quickly just explain to you where we will be talking to today. So this is the northern neighborhood. The way we kind of divided in our first just rough assessment of a large riding like Kitchener Center is everything kind of north of the area we have as this kind of our first listening session. And afterwards, we will go to the Southwest neighborhood. So that'll be things south of Victoria, westward of, I would say, let's say Charles Street. And so that's like Mill Courtland, around like Victoria West, where the Highland Sobeys is, like that kind of area, then all the way down to kind of Ottawa. And then after that, we will be speaking with East neighborhoods. So that is things on the other side of, I believe it might be Weaver, on the east end, but so that's like Eastwood and Stanley Park and Heritage Park, and those neighborhoods. And then finally, we will wrap it up at the end of the month into the central neighborhood. So that is like downtown Kitchener, around the market area, and Victoria Park, just kind of that main central strip down King Street with the transit corridor. We will also be doing big issue listening sessions, and those are going to be on our Wednesdays at lunch, and that'll be when we talk about big issues. So affordable housing was last Wednesday. Next week we have healthcare. We'll be speaking about a lot of different healthcare experiences that we've been hearing, a lot of healthcare justice type concerns from women and reproductive access to medical racism, and making sure that there's equality in healthcare access at the federal level. The week after that, we'll be speaking about youth in the future. So really how we're going to create generational change and generational policies. And then the week after that, we will be speaking about an equitable recovery. So if we acknowledge that our budgets are our responsibilities and our priorities, how do we budget equity? How do we make sure that the people who have been, left the most vulnerable and the hardest hit are also being accounted for in our budgeting. So all of that is to come, and a lot more on these listening sessions. So thank you so much for joining us. What I wanted to do is open up the chat to see. Oh, Craig. Hi, Craig. How are you? Would you want to just kind of, Craig is actually, I called you a couple, I think last week, and we had a great chat, and I invited you to our session, and I was wondering if you wanted to contribute. I'm gonna just give you the mic really quickly. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, I was just wondering, how are you? We had a really quick little call earlier, but
yeah,
we got some motorists.
Yeah, no, I'm doing well, thanks. It's another Friday, looking at, just finally had 2 weeks after my first dose, so I'm kind of finally able to, go out and enjoy things a little bit more, and I'm definitely happy to have this opportunity to kind of get to know you more on this, more, I'll say, public forum, out and about kind of thing. That's definitely important to me. So I'm super excited to have that kind of opportunity here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of new conversations that are needed to be had after what we've experienced and what we've seen. And so I definitely did want to lead by conversation. So I really do appreciate you coming out and you contributing. So do you have any kind of issues that are top of mind to you? Anything that you are watching out for in this, any kind of an election campaign that's coming up?
I mean, I think housing is a big one, right? I recently moved to the region, probably in the past, it was 3 years ago, actually, as of, a week ago. So yeah,
Congratulations.
It's a really lovely place. I love it here. And I think the big thing for me is during the pandemic, had to make a split decision of whether I wanted to be, kicked out of where I was living because the owner of the place had
Really?
and I think with the new banking restrictions, I don't think I could afford where I live anymore, even though it's a 1-bedroom condo, and it's I'm essentially living in what is a shoebox. Right? And my future aspirations as somebody who's around your age is I would like to maybe start a family, have a space, start a family. And even on, a lot of people might tout that, tech salaries here are great. I can't afford to live here. And
Yeah.
that's scary to me. And I fear for the other people in my age group, as well as even the younger generation, right? Because I want to make sure that they also have something.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's another thing is like, I know so many people who are our age and have good jobs and like did all the things that we were supposed to do, and
Yeah.
and we can get by, but it's just the idea of being able to have that security. It just seems like further and further away, I think, every year for me.
Yeah. And it's definitely alarming when I guess housing prices in Kitchener alone, like in our area, has risen
Yeah.
$51,000. Like that's more than half my salary. It went up in a
Yeah.
month, right? Like there's no way to save for a down deposit or something like that, right?
No. And
And
not when like, the listing price is just going to be $150,000 over asking too, right? So what you're seeing isn't even necessarily what it's going to end up being too.
Right.
Oh. And so so you're a renter like me?
No, I
Oh
actually,
no.
man, I scraped together enough money for like a 5% down deposit.
Oh, look at you.
But I'm
That's
unfortunately,
great though. You got it, but like at the time, but sorry, unfortunately.
so unfortunately, like the previous owner managed, just because she had the capital at hand, her mortgage was something like $400 a month less than mine. And because the
Oh.
prices went up so fast, like she she's not even from here, right? She was from out of town in Toronto. She, bought up a bunch of property, rented it out, and then flipped it. And I think that's becoming more and more common and becoming more
I think so too.
concerning. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
there's definitely an air of concern of home ownership going away and being replaced with kind of a permanent renter solution,
Which isn't a solution really, right? Like if
right.
we can't actually invest in these communities that we are living in, you know what I mean? If there's never that security of knowing I get to stay here, I can build roots here, I
Right.
think that we're always going to think about our community is temporary sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, how do you invest in a place that you can't afford to, stay
Yeah.
in permanently?
That's a really good point. It's something I've definitely noticed in the building I live in is it's like a 70% landlord ownership and 30% of the people who live here. And so you've got the landlords who don't live here and don't care. And you've got the tenants who are like, well, this is only temporary, so why do I need to care about my neighborhood? And it causes a really negative relationship between people, and you don't really get that
Tension,
interaction.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that you want people to really know their neighbors, and I think that's like a really kind of essential part of building community and like feeling safe and like feeling like you have people that you see when you're walking down the street, and you kind of build those relationships. And so I think that
Yeah.
when you're living in a situation where it is kind of hostile, so I was rent evicted actually in January of this year from my apartment. But before the rent eviction happened, there's like months of just like you don't know, and it's not just like that one moment. There's so much more to it. So I feel like it's a complex that just kind of creates like just tension in communities, right? And then you really don't have people who feel accepted or feel like they can invest in a community and build in a community. But where did you come from, Craig? Like, where did you move here from?
So I moved here from Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Okay.
So,
and so you moved here strictly for work. Did you know anything about the region or Kitchener before you moved here?
So I had a couple friends who were originally from here. They went to Waterloo, decided to come out here, and they said, look, there's more job opportunities out west here. So I decided to go with that. It was really good. So I just basically got a job here, hopped in my car with my belongings, and started to start my life here.
And then you did, but that's kind of actually what I did too. I think there's a lot of us that kind of wild wested it and didn't really know very much, but whether it was work or whether it was friends or a relationship or whatever it was, that was just kind of the avenue to coming here. And I think it's interesting though, but that we stay, right? Like
Yeah.
those things, I mean, I'm not still in the same job that I was brought here for, right? It wasn't just work that would keep me here. And I think that we need to focus on those things that keep us here, right?
Yeah. Right. And building opportunities within our communities and whatnot, and making sure that, you know, people feel like they have some ownership there. And
So how did
probably
you,
so.
just like outside of like work or whatever it was, how did you build ownership within your community? I'll move on to someone else. I'll stop, you know, quizzing you really in a second. But
No.
I'm curious, like, how did you start meeting people? How did you start in getting involved in things? Or did you, or has it been difficult? How's that going?
So for me, I actually decided to run for my condo board just to kind of get people involved. We had a lot of issues, like there were a lot of issues with, you know, landlords and whatnot not really holding up their end of the bargain. So I ran for it. I got on board president, and
Wow.
you know, you really start to build a community and get to know the neighbors and organize that together. And you know, you really start to uncover the
That's
community that's
awesome.
been buried under a lot of that tension and stress. So
And
it's
those,
good to
yeah,
know
and
that
those like
there are real
relationships.
people. Yeah, like there are real people out there who care about here,
Yeah,
and that's the big thing for me, and it's great to see.
that's awesome. I think that is the big thing. And I think it's awesome when, I mean, I kind of, a part of me and part of like what I do is like working with nonprofit boards. And I like working with boards of directors and just like leadership kind of teams in general, because you can really get like, you can get a sense of a community, and you can really like bring an organization forward in a lot of ways. So I always
Yeah.
appreciate it when somebody wants to take that kind of leadership position and make a change in a community that they, you know, believe in, and that they have a mission or a value that they kind of are attached to. I think that's just really special stuff. So I definitely salute that, Craig.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
I'll put you off of the hook. I'm
Yep,
gonna
sure.
move on to a couple of the written submissions
Sounds good.
that we have received. Let me just do that. Okay, great. So I'm just opening really quickly. So again, we are just outside. It stopped raining, but luckily we're underneath an umbrella. And
Beisan, would you like to first hear from a small business owner in Belmont, actually?
amazing. Thank you, Krista. We have Krista, who is actually our like roving speaker's corner. Thank you so much. Yes, we would love to. So I'm just going to send the mic over to you.
Okay, absolutely. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So I am here in Belmont Village with Samantha Ball, who is the owner of Rumner's Wobble at 720 Belmont Avenue West. So she is a small business owner that actually I have personally been working with closely through the pandemic. And I thought we could just chat with her for a couple of minutes about
That'd be wonderful.
what life has been like as a small business owner during the pandemic in Kitchener Center. So Samantha, can you just tell us, when was it exactly that you took over Rumner's Wobble, and how long was that before the pandemic?
I took over the business in April of 2019, and my first anniversary of owning the shop, I was actually closed due to COVID, which just happened a few weeks prior to my first year. So it was quite devastating and quite challenging, to say the least. Obviously, closing the doors was traumatic for me as a small business owner and a new business owner. But it also, silver lining, it dressed me to putting my store live online, giving myself a website, reaching out to people that I hadn't been able to reach out to before. So it kind of forced hands. I came up with Digital Main Street. I was able to get a wonderful grant and work with some wonderful people that helped me create all this and work on my social media. Obviously, sales have been a huge factor for retail, like anybody around here. It was detrimental. It was devastating for that. But I also now have a wider range of customers. People are definitely aware of buying local and supporting local small businesses. And that has really kind of brought everybody together. And so for that support, I'm forever grateful. And we hope that things are moving on and we're able to do business as usual, hopefully.
Yeah, and that Digital Main Street program that Samantha mentioned is a program that's supported by both the provincial government here in Ontario as well as some components from FedDev. And I know even though that was a small grant for the businesses, only $2,500, that program particularly was very impactful at helping people to actually transform their businesses, either to create e-commerce websites, set up online ordering for restaurants. Did you have any experience with any of the other supports that were offered by the government during the pandemic? Like I think there was rent relief, things like that.
Yeah, there was some rent relief through the
Yeah.
landlord and now it's through the
Through
government.
the government.
So that has certainly,
Those things
has
are
certainly
helpful.
helped us.
Okay.
It's been good.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And definitely in small Ontario grants for small businesses. You know,
Yeah.
I
They extended some.
Is there like anything that, oh, can you hear me? Chris, I was wondering if there was anything that, the small businesses on Belmont just really wanted to kind of share with the community. I think that we've all been very, very focused on buying local. And I think that's, we don't just, even though, things are changing or opening up, I think that should still be a really big part of what we're doing and what we're supporting. And so how can we, keep it up? How can we keep supporting you? Things, we're not out of the hot water yet. So, what do you need from us still?
Yeah, no, it's the community support and it's the support of the city and being able to drive and advertise and promote people to come down and enjoy this small village within the city, right? And that's just bringing people down and, trying to work with, the building owners here and trying to drive business and create, a village here and allow the proper parking and just the whole community drive. So definitely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. I think that was all
I
from
mean,
on the street.
thank you. That was wonderful. And it's always great to be able to, hear from the complexity of people who are in our neighborhoods. I think the way that we have been experiencing, the last couple years, we know it hasn't been equal. We know that the challenges have been like really different. But I think that one of the emphases of, this tour will be like looking for just as many of those perspectives. So I just, once that motor is out of the way, I wanted to really quickly share just a couple of the written submissions that we've gotten in advance. If you can't make any of these live events, you are definitely encouraged to just send us a note, write us anything on social media, and we'll share that as well. It's really about hearing from as many people as possible and kind of bringing in as many perspectives. So Michael Parkinson said he's sorry that he can't join us, but one of the first things that he is really concerned about is funding upstream prevention efforts. So making sure that what we are like focusing on as a society is preventing, a lot of the end results of whether it's medical issues or whether it's criminalization. Upstream prevention really means that you stop people from entering into a lot of the systems that lead to those kinds of long-term effects. So things like making sure that there's community centers where people have different types of activities and different types of supports that are available for them. So they can do all the things and be open to all the kind of they have access to the opportunities that they need in order to avoid a lot of the systemic kind of outcomes of inequality. And then the second thing that Michael was very concerned about is drug poisoning. And of course, we have an overdose crisis happening right now. And I think we've been really focused on the pandemic, of course, but the opioid crisis and other kinds of, drug crises have not stopped. And in fact, they've actually gotten worse. And so we've seen just those numbers kind of getting worse, and we haven't really been able to, look at it holistically, and so we need to be able to like walk and chew gum at the same time and realize that these are all connected, and that all of these kinds of systemic issues are exacerbated through healthcare. We're actually, it's really great timing, Michael. Thank you so much for sending that in, because we have next week on Wednesday at noon, we have our health listening session. So that'll be an opportunity for us to really dive into kind of these issues and make sure that we have we have a lot of different perspectives on healthcare. So we will have women's repro justice rights voices there. We will have people who have been involved with our local COVID pandemic recovery and kind of and how we kind of moved on from that, and a lot more. So if you're interested in that, we'll have more then. I'm wondering if we have anybody live that we'd like to kind of chat with. Okay. Oops, I lost you, and that wasn't the best pause of the screen. I don't see anybody waiting with their hand up, so I'm just going to, I have another submission for today. And then we don't have to, from Mary Helen, and about how she lives in congregate care facility, and that is where elderly people are living. And she's saying that the walls and the apartment around me have been old and in disrepair for a very long time. I am not able to complain, and I know that these problems are felt all throughout the building. We have been isolated from each other and are looking forward to being able to see you outdoors and have a conversation together. What we chatted on the phone. One of the things that she wanted kind of for me to point out was that the connection between housing and age is something that is sometimes overlooked, especially kind of in our region. We have a lot of elderly care facilities, and just making sure, especially with what we've seen in the last couple of years in terms of like long-term care, specifically making sure that long-term care homes are brought in and regulated, and that we are not just like leaving it to the private market to make sure that these lives are being taken care of. I think it's really, really important. There's a little horn there. Oh no, it stopped just when I started. So let's just take a pause really quickly, as I think Krista is finding somebody for us to chat with really quickly. I just wanted to show you just where we are. We're at Wilhelm's Cafe. I got a muffin. I have a coffee. There are people out here. They are enjoying just being outside despite a little bit of drizzle. And I also have, hey Lou, who's that? This one, this dog right here is Luna. And this is, I feel like these, these listening sessions are also, I guess, a chance to get to know me. This one is a fixture around me. Basically everywhere I go. She's a very, very sweet dog, and she is from Mexico. And she has been very, very patient, a very patient kind of partner for me in this. But sometimes she gets less patient. So that is my apology in advance. I don't see Krista. I'm wondering. Let's see.
I'm here. I'm walking back towards you.
Oh, there we go. I see you now. Great. Oh, there she is. Okay, perfect. I'm wondering now, should we have a question in the Q&A. Sounds like there's a recurring issue regarding the privatization of services / housing and how they do their best to cut corners in an effort to maximize profits, and in doing so harming people within our community. Great question. Thank you. Yes, 100%. And I would argue that it goes beyond housing, right? Like, you're right that we have looked at these industries, or we've allowed these industries to look at these things that are really like essential needs and the things that keep us alive as commodities and as things to, pull a profit on. And when you divorce like the human right element of it and like the real, the housing is a need, housing is a right, healthcare is a need, it's a right. These are all things that as human beings that we can't take for granted. You really can't have those be things that are about just maximizing profits. And so that definitely happened. We saw that happen, in long-term care. We're seeing that happening in housing, all around, right? The creation of the rental market means that, like, right now when you're buying a residential home, and we're seeing that a lot. We actually talked a lot about this at the affordable housing listening session just a couple of days ago. If you're buying if you're trying to get into kind of like a housing market and you don't even have like the down payment to do that, who are the people who are actually able to purchase in this kind of a market, right? It's people who are purchasing for investments and are generally purchasing to flip. So they're purchasing a property in order to charge higher rents. Because that is the investment and that is the profit that is involved in that. And that's like the nature of it. You can't change that without changing the nature of it. You can't create, a whole, a completely revise the way that the housing market works without actually changing the nature of understanding how we structured it to just kind of be unfair and be pretty exploitative. Yeah, they're all connected, right? It's not, you can't, change that. And as a follow-up, would you say that the internet nowadays is more a requirement for participation in regular day-to-day activities and therefore should be considered a need? And perhaps should be turned into a public utility like water, hydro, etc. I love this question because yes, it is a need. Like, you can't right now go to school. We had, during the first round of the pandemic, we literally had children who needed to go do their schoolwork in like the parking lots of Tim Hortons and libraries because they didn't have fast enough Wi-Fi at home for Zoom calls. Like, I think that shows to you just how much of a necessity it is, that it's not a luxury anymore. And we have parts of this country, and this is again running as a member of parliament, we have parts of this country that they don't have like broadband access, right? We have parts of especially rural parts of the country, that they are like either working on extremely expensive satellite or extremely slow dial-up. And those are the only two kind of internet options. So I definitely think that we should create a national, a affordable wireless broadband kind of service. But let's take it a step further and let's talk about telecom, right? Like, let's talk about how Canada has the most expensive cell phone rates in the entire OECD, right? We are paying unheard of rates, like so much more than Americans pay, so much more than Australians or people in Europe pay for sure for their cell phones. We pay the highest, and we pay that because we have allowed a couple corporations to just own the entire the entire kind of telecom market here. If that's not going to change, if we ask them nicely, like, we'll get those, we know what those deals are, the cheaper deals, we know the limitations of them, and we know what we're doing and we know what we're getting as consumers. What we need, I believe, and this is in line with a policy that was actually passed at the NDP convention, is a national telecom, a public telecom company that would be both internet, making sure that internet as a fundamental kind of service and right every Canadian has access to at an affordable rate, so that we could kind of create a standard of internet broadband access across the country. but then also have that be wireless rates as well, because there's no reason if you're doing one to not do the other, especially when we have such just a predatory market. So definitely think that internet is a requirement for more than just school participation, work participation, economic participation, educational, political participation. We've built all of those things around it. And it is a need and should be considered as, a public need and, created as a utility for sure. So thank you so much for that question and that follow-up. I answered that. Okay. Just checking really quickly what we have on the docket. Okay. I was wondering, I think now would actually be a really great time for us to show our volunteer video that we have. We put together a volunteer information video. As we're getting started, we wanted to create different avenues for people to get involved and participate with what we're doing. And so we put together just a little information video that we will, I think, play in a second. I think we're ready for that. I'm just gonna see if we can play it.
Hi, my name is Beisan Zubi, and that's not me, but I am your NDP candidate for Member of Parliament in Kitchener Centre. This year, coming together to create change is more urgent than ever. We're fighting for affordable housing, for healthcare, for our futures. I'm ready to go to Ottawa and fight for you, but I'm not alone. Our team has been hard at work getting ready to launch a listening tour, community engagements, and other events. But we need people like you to join our communications, operations, and outreach efforts and help us build a movement. All volunteers will be invited into a supportive and collaborative community with friendly team leaders and have access to a resource library and weekly learning sessions, including bystander intervention training offered by the Sexual Assault Support Center. Our campaign has a social responsibility pledge. 10% of all our fundraising goes to accessibility, and another 10% goes to our $20 an hour living wage fund. Affording the time to volunteer is a privilege, and creating an accessible space for everyone to get politically involved at this pivotal moment in our history is one of our most important responsibilities. Visit www.beisanzubi.ca/join-team to join our team, register for an election sign of support, or to find out more.
Oh, I love that video so much. Just really quickly, we have Stacey Sage, who's our volunteer coordinator. And I was hoping Stacey could just hop on for just a couple seconds and explain a little bit about what opportunities and what the process is around becoming part of our campaign is.
Hi, Beisan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I just popped on. I was a little bit late. I was just tied up with work, so sorry here. Yes, but hi, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here with us today. And yes, we are absolutely looking for volunteers. We are creating a very safe, welcome space for our volunteers. I'm brand new to a federal election campaign myself, so we're all learning here together. This is a very amazing, supportive team. So you can visit beisanzubi.ca. What is our link actually to there? It is going to be, we just said it too, join our team. And then if you could just fill out, if you are interested in joining and working with us, fill out that form on there, and then you'll automatically be brought in with another welcome newsletter that'll give you information, resources, to give you all the things that you need to know to come on to the campaign and support Beisan, and then we'll add you to our Slack channel. There's other events that we're going to have over the course of the month, and then obviously moving through the campaign that you can come and join and be part of, which is very exciting. But yeah, it's just going to be an amazing opportunity to get involved with a group of people who want to drive real change in Kitchener-Waterloo and this country. So look forward to having you on board.
Thank you so much, Stacey. And thank you. So I just, you know, I feel like for when I do work with small businesses and with nonprofits, I always make sure that people know that the most important person that people will kind of come in contact with is going to be that you know, that volunteer coordinator is going to be that first point of contact. And I just feel like Stacey Sage is just the best and such a great person. And so I have such faith that all of you will be anybody who wants to be, you know, get involved in the campaign will be treated so well by Stacey. We just have one more really quick Q&A thing that I just wanted to read. So considering we pay the highest amounts for cell phone bills, etc., why hasn't the government provided billions of dollars to support telecom company infrastructure expansions? Is it fair to Canadians that we paid Bell around 30 million for COVID relief and they turned around and paid a massive executive bonus directly after, as opposed to expanding infrastructure and lowering prices? Is it fair to Canadians? I would say no, it is not fair to Canadians. I would say that we had, you know, a good amount of work that was done in the House of Commons to create you know, the idea of like the wage subsidy and the different kinds of COVID relief that was put out there. But then what we saw was that just the same big corporations took advantage of it. If you're taking government, like taxpayer money, that is literally an emergency crisis fund, the idea that you're making profits big enough after that to you know, write massive checks to all your shareholders is those are conflicting ideas, right? Like, this was supposed to be an emergency fund to really help the companies that needed it. That was a matter of like, you know, going under or not. And that's not how it was used by those corporations. So it's not fair. I agree. We need to be more like, we need to be sure that when we are doing an equitable recovery, I'm so focused on the fact that if we keep putting money back into the same systems that have been causing us these, you know, systemic problems and these harms, like, we are just, you know, we're never going to transform anything. We're never going to change anything. So I totally agree with you. I think that we need to really start being more conscious about focusing our efforts on building up small businesses, like these amazing small businesses that are all around me and have participated and helped us out today. Thank you for the wonderful coffee and muffin Wilhelm, and for our just we'll have everybody, and we'll have everybody's names and all their kind of titles like at the end of it. But thank you to everybody who has participated. Small businesses are obviously really, really important. Communities are really important. We need to start investing back into those kinds of smaller levels and not keep padding, you know, shareholder accounts and corporate accounts. We have to change the way we do business. And we have to really reimagine what it could be like to center people at the core of our policymaking. And I think it's going to just take a lot more work and a lot more time and a lot more people and a lot more voices. But that's why we're here. And we're very motivated for the work that's to come and the fight that's to come. So it's starting to rain a little bit harder. So I think we're going to call this one, if there's nobody else just in the Q&A, just to make sure before okay. I would like to just thank everybody for showing up. I would like to thank everybody who's watching on the live stream and not on the Zoom call. And I would like to thank you if you are, you know, watching this later on in the campaign and just trying to see what we are up to. It's all very, very helpful because we want to just be heard and be seen, but also to just hear from you and see you and meet you and just understand you and your issues. I'm a new candidate. And so I know that I have meeting to do, and I'm just excited to do all of that meeting and to, you know, hopefully soon be knocking on your door and be kind of in your community face to face. But until then, this is as close as we can get. And it's good. It's nice. It's so great to be out here in Belmont. Thank you, Belmont Village. And thank you to everybody who watched. So we will have another listening session next Wednesday, and that will be on healthcare. And then next Friday, our next neighborhood listening session will feature Southwest neighborhoods. Thank you to everybody. Have a great lunchtime. And we will be in your community. We will see you soon. Take care.